All right. Well, here we are, back at the Cigawi podcast.
Woohoo!
And my guest today, Clay Hilley.
Hello, Eric.
International tenor extraordinaire and newest resident of Berlin, Germany. Isn't that right?
That's right. Not all the clothes are even unboxed yet.
If you can find out where he lives, you can find out where he gets his coffee.
It's very in der Nähe von Deutsche Oper Berlin. All right, you cracked that beer right on.
Yeah. So we're drinking some German brews today.
So yes, I requested something dunkel, and so we have one of my favorites, Köstritzer Schwarzbier.
Oh, that sounds delicious. I think it's a meal in itself, probably.
There's a sandwich in every beer, my buddy.
Oh,
and the ambulance is here for
us. There's the alarm.
Galarm.
So, cheers, buddy.
Cheers back at you.
Welcome. All right.
Geklinken. Und trinken.
I got a Helles. That's.
Oh, is it Bayreuther?
It's Augustiner.
Augustiner.
Yeah. The have you tried the Augustiner brews?
Yeah, I've had that one. I've had that hell.
Yeah. They're a fantastic beer. I mean, they've got it's like a monastery that started this brewery, and I guess the original one is in Salzburg. Somebody's going to probably comment on that.
That's the one. Okay, I was wondering if it was the same one because that is one place you can go for some strong drinks.
Yeah.
Sarah and I were there over New Year's of 2016 into 2017, and I was doing an Einspringen for Idomeneo with a Landestheater there. And
that's a huge role.
We unassumingly walked in there, and there was nothing. It didn't seem like the beer would be particularly strong, but man. I mean, it went down easy. It was all nice and bright, and definitely not dunkel. But my goodness, we stood up and maybe stood up and walked to the restroom, and you really felt it when you stood up. It was good. It was amazing.
Yeah, check out these levels. See how you can kind of move up on your mic a little bit there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Testing.
Yeah, there you go.
Testing.
That's better. A little
bit further in.
Yeah. You can move it around the way however you want to do it there. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, the top side is like sort of the hot side there. So the bottom really doesn't capture anything.
Okay. So that might be.
So
hello.
Yeah, there you go. That's a bit better.
Maybe turn my gain up a little bit, I guess.
Let me try that.
I seem a little.
Check that.
Checking, testing.
Yeah, that's okay.
I'll try to hover over it a little more.
Yeah, it's remarkable. The equipment really balances a lot of this stuff out. I mean, if you go in and check out my podcasts, the two that I recorded so far, it's like the levels are amazing because a lot of it, the microphone fixes a lot, the interface fixes a lot, GarageBand fixes a lot. So and then when you upload it, like YouTube, Spotify, they have like
other subsequent.
They have like other filters and things like that because it only enhances them if it sounds good as well.
Good point.
So yeah.
Super.
So you just finished Siegfried, is that right?
Yeah, the small little copper Siegfried? Mario roll of Siegfried.
Yes. Did I mention he's a Helden tenor? Yes, I think I did.
You did. Yes, we finished cycle number 3 on, I believe it was the 9th of January. We had there was a hiatus at the Opera House between the second cycle and the third. It wasn't like boom, boom, boom. It was boom, boom, and then a rest of about 6 weeks, and then the final boom. The final ring cycle was in January, whereas the first 2 were in November. Anyway, it was nice. It gave us in the cast a little bit of chance to have Thanksgiving and Christmas, and then let our voices just chill out for a little bit, and then come back and be fresh. It ended up being a good thing. Yeah. Sarah, my wife, was in the audience and was like, "Yeah, I think everybody benefited from having a hiatus, and we'd come back and made some, it felt a little more fresh and new again." So.
Yeah, I wonder if there were some people in the cast who kind of didn't like that,
Must have been. I mean, look, it wasn't all ideal. Look, Stefan Herheim's productions are so, wonderfully choreographed. I mean, down to the eighth note. I tell Sarah in the lead up to the performances, I'm like, look, this is going to be sort of Gilbert and Sullivan's ring cycle in terms of having everything musically inspired, which I believe is wonderful, and it makes the experience for the audience great. But when it comes to, like you say, remounting something that detailed, if you don't have enough time, there were things that I missed here and there. There was maybe one time I was supposed to maybe slap Mima on the back of his head that I forgot about, or I did it on the wrong beat or something like that. But other than that, okay. I think other than that, I thought it was a fresh show. There's some spontaneity there that was good.
I mean, one beat in a 6-hour opera, I think you're okay.
But when you know it's wrong in your live performance,
when you know
it's wrong, you can't go back and fix it.
Yeah,
you just
exactly.
can't do it.
You know it, and it haunts you. Then
it does. You just can't let it haunt you.
Yeah, because it's interesting. I mean, we both were educated in the U.S. and then started our careers in the U.S. and then came to Germany and more specifically Berlin. But we don't really have this style of, you kind of do some rehearsals, open the show, and then you kind of go away a little bit, and it could be a couple of weeks, it could be a couple of months, and then you suddenly come back to it.
And you're like, oh wait, muscle memory is not quite there. I've got to actually sit in the dressing room, actually with my score open and looking at, I know the role, but man, I've got to sit there and look at every line, and not for the music or the word's sake, but all that a little bit. But I mean, I've got to place myself in, back on the stage, since I don't get rehearsals, too many brush-up rehearsals, if any at all. So I've got to, everyone's got to be on top of their game. Everyone's got to be, mentally, clear and ready to roll.
Yeah, that's good. I did Ricardo in Ballo one time, mm-hmm. and it was even like a sort of a smaller house, and we did 26 performances in one season. So we opened the show. We did like 2 in September, 3 in October, 4 in November, 3 in December.
Wow.
And then I think we did like 1 in January, and then like 4 in February, but it stretched out the entire year. The last one was like mid-May.
Did you did every single one?
I did every one.
Was there a lot of, but among the other cast members, was there some
double casting?
No, or some shakeups, or like, one artist wasn't available for all 20 something or whatever?
Yeah, well, we had, originally, Ricardo was double cast. Mm-hmm. And the first cast guy kind of backed out, and instead of looking for another cast guy, another tenor, they just asked me to do all of them. They just happened to know
Ricardo, yeah.
Right, so they asked me to do all of them, and it was just an insane experience. Yeah, so we're good. See this? We got our recording levels going here, and we're good there. And then this is right to be not sort of making any noise. That's like the monitor volume.
Oh, cool.
So if that was making noise, or if that was like showing some light there, that would be the sound coming from the TV. And then you'd hear like this crazy echo.
Interesting.
So I only found that out, of course, by failing at it. So
hey, whatever.
But yeah, it's interesting how, in the States, you're rehearsing 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. You're doing 2 shows on the weekend. If you're lucky, you get a second weekend and maybe 1 show in the middle. In the U.S., even the most regional houses now, they're piling up the performances on the weekend because that's when they know they can get the audience.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's tricky. It's tricky in the U.S. right now.
And always, it has been for a while, I think.
They, I guess the bigger houses are operating. Metropolitan is operating. San Francisco, L.A., Houston,
Chicago.
Mm-hmm. They're sort of operating. And I guess some of the...
D.C.
Yeah. Yeah, so the bigger houses definitely are. I guess it's by state as the as far as the COVID mandates go.
Yeah, I'm so out of it. I haven't done a thing on stage in the States since probably 2018 or earlier, or 2019.
Oh,
before
wow.
COVID. Yeah, my career was just about to take off when COVID hit, and the 2 years immediately prior to that, I was just a cover. I was only understudying in the best places. I understudied all the houses you just rattled off. I mean,
Yeah.
And in DC and Chicago, the Met, and San Francisco, I was just the reliable cover, and it was great. It was a great place to pay off some bills and not be like in the hot seat to have to perform. But I just, I was, after about a year and a half of that, I was ready. I'm like, we need to get on the stage. We need to get out of the green room. And that year was going to be 2020. And,
Right.
And we see what happened, but and whatever.
Right.
I'm not alone. but I emerged from it. I always told them, my age, I tried to have an optimistic outlook. I was thinking, I would always just say to myself, to my wife, to my agent, I'd be like, I'm okay. Like people aren't going to forget me. I had enough momentum when all the hit the fan that
You can swear.
okay, all the crap hit the fan. When it all hit the fan, I had enough momentum going that no one was going to just forget about me after, because I didn't get my big year of debuts.
Right.
I always said, look, if opera comes back at all, Clay Hilley's going to be fine. I've done my time. I was pushing 40. I am 40 now, and and so I am ready to go. And I found joy in the journey. There was a lot of pain in the journey, but tried to find joy in the journey.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, we could say because of your voice type, if you take care of yourself, you could be singing for the next 20 years.
We're hoping so. I'm looking.
Yeah.
I'm looking for another 25 years. I want to do this till 65ish,
65,
maybe even
wow.
70. Who knows? Do some character roles, have some actual fun.
My gosh,
sing stuff is not as treacherous, and there's just more fun and less vocally, whatever, demanding.
Do you know who Kenneth Regal is?
I know the name.
Tenor.
Yeah, I've got recordings.
So, he's on an early, sort of younger in his life. He did Don Ottavio.
Right, he was a Mozart. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it was with Kiri Takanawa. I think she was the soprano in that. I forget who conducted. I was just talking to a friend about this recording the other day. But what's interesting is when I met him, we were doing Salome, and he was Herod.
Yep.
And he sang a lot of Helden tenor roles late in his career.
Right.
But, at this point, he was almost 70, I think. I think he was almost 70. And, I mean, of course, the voice was just perfect for that role at that time in his life. And, I mean, he was sharp. Musically, very sharp. And his...
that's such a killer musically.
I mean, he acted the role better than most Herods that I've seen. But I was narrowboat in that.
Oh, no.
So
where was that again?
Glimmerglass.
Oh, Glimmerglass.
Yeah.
Wait.
Yeah.
Okay.
Way back in the day. I think it was the year 2000. So.
Oh, all right.
Because you did it too, right?
I did Glimmerglass. Yeah. 2012 and 13. Yeah.
Right. So this was the previous administration with Paul Kellogg. Mm-hmm. Rest in peace.
Was it the same group that ended up at BLO?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Esther Nelson.
Shout out to Esther.
Hi,
How you
Esther.
doing? And Nick Russell.
Yep.
Shout out to Nick.
Hi, Nick.
My man. I did Narrowboat that year. I remember the death. It was so awesome. Of course, stabbed myself. And, you've worked with Sandra Eddy, have you not?
I know who she is. I've seen her perform.
Yeah. Well, we both went to BU, and she lives in Boston, too.
Oh, cool.
So she was the page. And I would have to turn up stage, and I had like a blood packet in my sash, and I had to pull it out and like squeeze it, And it's just plastic that they actually iron it shut. So there's actually no like opening. It's
you break it.
You break it. You gotta just rupture it. So you never know where the blood is gonna go. So and one time, I mean, it just squirted all over her face, and she was
good.
like,
"That's good."
Yeah,
that audience got their money's worth.
Yeah, exactly. But it's a big enough packet where a big puddle ends up on the stage, and the staging was that the two guards grab me by the feet. I think they grab each one grabs a foot, and they drag me through the blood. And so like there's this giant streak of blood on the stage. It was amazing. Just amazing.
So it's a crazy opera. I wonder sometimes, like, what was it like for the opening night audience, like at the premiere? What was it? When did Salome debut? Like, 1918?
Yeah, I think it's something like that.
Or was it a little before? Don't judge me, musicologists, but just to have been there. I mean, I think the same thing about like the Ride of the Valkyries, like the first set of ears that collectively got to hear that and be like, what is going on? What planet have I been transported to with all this noise, all this wonderful noise?
Exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah, it's amazing to think that, these operas that we consider so, please help yourself.
Beer Nummer 2.
You worked up an appetite.
Hey, look, I had Goethe Institute this morning.
Yeah, that's right.
I've had a long day. I've been up a while.
You got to feed those brain cells.
Oh my goodness.
Clay's doing the language training at the Goethe Institute, so that's pretty awesome. And
wir versuchen, meine Frau und ich.
Yeah.
So Sarah and I are up, and we're catching an Uber because we're just too lazy to actually wake up a little earlier and actually get on the subway to go. We grab an Uber. We're summoning the Uber by 8 every morning, and we're finishing the Goethe Institute at 1. But we do come back from the Goethe Institute via public transport.
Oh, very good.
We don't actually do an Uber 2 ways. We are only half. We're only half wasteful.
No worries. Yeah, but Clay also worked up an appetite when he got here. We did a little recording session, which we're going to feature later on in the podcast, or maybe at the end, or maybe in a separate recording. But
yeah, so the disclaimer there is I don't recall having ever accompanied myself on these 2 arias that I did just when I first got to Eric's. Sat on the piano and I recorded myself doing Vesti la Giubba from Pagliacci, of course, and Winterströme, and also the little touch of Act 4 of Bohème, just instrumental, beautiful musical interlude that will be familiar to every listener.
I think a lot of people are going to be surprised at how well you play the piano, and I would like for you to tell us why that is.
It didn't come easy. It wasn't. No one plugged a computer chip into my brain that made my fingers work.
Yeah, the origin story here of Clay Hilley. Yes. Tell us how you got to where you are now. I mean, and start at the beginning because it's always interesting. No one has everyone's path, especially in opera. I find is so unique.
For sure, yeah. I mean, some people are electricians and plumbers, and then some people have been doing music all their life but not voice. That sort of was the case with me. I started playing the trumpet in the 5th grade, and had this sort of latent desire that I didn't realize till also about that time that I wanted to learn how to play the piano. All of a sudden, having been in church all my years up to that point, which what am I, 8 or 9 at that age? But I mean, I came from that kind of family that was always there whenever the church was unlocked, and just sort of one day the pianist just sort of caught my fancy, and I there was an interest there. Of course, my grandmother, rest her soul, years before any of my cousins were born or I, she had long prayed to have a musical grandchild.
Interesting.
And so I have 3 older cousins from that side of the family, and also, goodness, I have 3 younger siblings, and I have 3 other cousins from that side. Anyway, so I'm sort of right there toward the top, so the top of the middle as far as age go. But none of them above me or below me had any interest in formally training for music. So it fell to me, I think, divinely. It was on my shoulders to go to conservatory and go into all that debt and with all those lessons. But again, there was joy in the journey. So my grandmother always would say to me before I got inspired, say, by the church pianist, she would approach me all the time. My grandmother would approach me and be like, "Now, Clay, if you'll take piano lessons, I'll buy you a piano." And I'm like, "That's not really a motivation. I don't really." Until one day it just came to me. Like I said, I'd already been playing the trumpet for a year in the little elementary school band, so I knew how to read music. That was a little bit. I mean, that got me a little ways. But of course, only one clef. I was only used to reading treble clef. Then I started taking piano lessons. Figured out the left hand and the bass clef, and took piano lessons all through the rest of middle school, stayed in the band. It was only in high school that I even got in the chorus or did anything vocally. Again, I kept the trumpet, kept the piano, all the way to my senior year. But somewhere around ninth grade, somewhere around my freshman year, I just joined the choir because my buddies were in it, and it would be easy. I mean, I read the music, it's no big deal. And I'd never really even sung in harmony before. I'd never even harmonized. The extent of my singing was like, just sort of unison children's choir screaming, at the Baptist church, which was, which was all fine. I had an ear for music, obviously, because I played the instruments anyway. So I kept the piano. I got really inspired, even more in high school. I had some like this big second wave of inspiration in high school. Going to piano recitals at the University of Georgia, which was actually the University of Georgia was closer to my actual home than my high school. So when I went to the University, yes, and I just stayed home for undergrad after I graduated high school. Again, further away from my front door than actually the University of Georgia was. So I just stayed in the same place. I stayed put for a long time. Got a second inspiration with piano, even though I started thinking, I don't know if I see myself as a piano performance person. I'd always been told, if you want to do that, you're going to need to do 6 to 8 hours of practicing a day. And I'm like, whoa. I could barely do the 2 that were required when I got to school to study music education. Was a piano and voice double major there, but let's actually get back to the voice part. High school, joined the choir.
Yeah, the voice thing is always the interesting thing because, like, you're a 10-year-old kid. Nobody says at 10, I want to grow up and be an opera singer.
Bingo.
It's like,
bingo.
especially in America.
Bingo.
So
when I got in the choir, enjoyed harmonizing, all the rest, I guess, like, friends of mine would just maybe hear me singing and be like, hey, man, you kind of have a nice sound to your voice. I mean, I know you don't study or whatever. I mean, I know you play the piano, you're in the band, but like, I think you should probably like try out for that solo or this solo.
Right.
And I would like get it and it'd be fun. And then our school did something incredibly ambitious. I was at just a small private school called Athens Christian. And we had a particularly talented class, sophomore class it was. And by talented class, I'm telling you, this is only enough for like only enough to stock 2 classrooms. That's how small the high school was. It was basically 45 high schoolers per grade.
Wow.
So 45 freshmen, 45 sophomores. 40.
Okay.
I graduated with, I think, 42 other people in 1999. Anyway, so we did the HMS Pinafore ambitious project. We just, from doing nothing, from having never sung anything, to being like, here's you like a full-blown like operetta, like legit singing, non-amplified, role, and do with it what you can. And so my parents came to the show.
You did Ray Frackstraw?
I actually was cast as Ray Frackstraw, but my buddy that was cast as the captain wanted to be Ray Frackstraw, and I didn't want to be. And this stands still today. I don't like the lovesick tenor lover roles. I don't love them. I just don't love it. I was like, captain of the ship sounds more fun. So my buddy Derek, who is also a professional singer now, I mean, it always has been. We just switched. We just went to the casting director. We were like, actually, can I do that role? So I ended up being the captain, and he ended up being Rafe.
Amazing.
Right. Derek Chester is
Derek
his name.
Chester. Shout out to Derek Chester.
Hi, Derek. Anyway, but man, then I just caught the bug of wanting to sing, wanting to perform. Doing operetta actually got me into musical theater. Actually, I'd never even, my mother and I would go to there's this great venue in Athens, Georgia that was pretty new at the time, maybe only about not even 10 years old back in those days. Still a nice venue called the Classic Center, and they were just a. There was one of these places, one of these theaters that were set up to host touring shows, off-Broadway tours and everything. And so we would usher so we could see the shows for free. And, we just really were into it. And before I could even drive, my mother would have to drive me there. And we would usher together. It was fun. I didn't get into grand opera till I was in college. It was being in the chorus of La Boheme. And that's why I selected that little excerpt there to play on the piano. Because it's just one of those things I can just open up to. And just if I'm stressed out, I'm stressed with singing, if I'm stressed with whatever, anything. And now like piano has become like a therapy because I haven't had a lesson in like 20-something years. And I can just sit down and play and I don't have to think about anything. And it's nice.
Yeah, that's a nice release.
That's
too.
right. Being in the Puccini, being in the Bohème chorus was what got me sold on grand opera. I always thought it was just a little bit too much. It was a little bit long-winded, and of course it is. but I figured out the longer I was around it, the easier it hit my ear, and I could associate all those leitmotifs. And I always say if there was no Wagner, there wouldn't have been a Puccini, in my opinion, because he really took those he took those leitmotifs and ran with them. It was pretty cool.
Exactly.
But in a more melodious way for the voice, thank God.
Yeah. Yeah. It is really interesting how your first encounter with opera affects you, especially when you hear the voice live. I always, when I talk to people who don't know much about opera, they are frequently saying that, well, it just makes no sense. They're just up on stage and they're flailing their arms around and it's almost borderline screaming and, it's in another language and everything like that. Well, yeah, anything that is sort of high art like that takes a bit of preparation. You have to know the story. You certainly have to experience the voice live, which was, I listened to a lot of, the way I got into it was mostly with recordings. A friend of mine from college had these recordings of, all the three tenors. And that's how I sort of initially got interested. But it wasn't until I heard a voice when I was in the same room with this voice that, you feel those chills and you feel it just so viscerally affect you. And gosh, I often say to myself, if more people could experience that.
Yes, if the only I guess the only exposure some people get are just like you say, caricatures, or like say there's the J.G. Wentworth commercial is great, and it's very catchy and great, but it's almost like it's such a caricature, and it's like. And we love it because we're singers and we're like, oh, it's a catchy tune. But everyone's like, opera has to be this over the top, irrelevant thing that people aren't singing about real issues and they're not singing about real feelings. And also we must turn the mirror on ourselves and be like, actually, if we are overselling it, if we are like violently gesturing and this kind of thing, lots of times, as you and I would both know, lots of times singers do that to compensate for their for their maybe perhaps shortcomings vocally, and we owe it to ourselves and to the art form and to our audiences not to be a caricature.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so back to your sort of origin story here. So now it's HMS Pinafore, and you did the captain, which is such an awesome role.
It was great. Great.
Damn me, it's too bad.
Oh, but this is a Christian school. We couldn't say that.
No.
That's the one word we had to change. Curse you, it's too bad. He said curse you. He said curse you. Oh, the monster overbearing. So we couldn't swear the big D.
Amazing.
And he never swears a big D.
They say damn it in the Bible, don't they?
Yeah, so
they're gonna damn you.
That's right.
Whatever.
Hey,
anyway,
times change. Times change for some.
Yeah. So you're in college.
Yeah, and
high school.
That got me to 10th grade, and then I started taking voice. There'd be like this weekly meetup with the woman who was the conductor of the Athens Choral Society. Would open her home every one particular weeknight, a Tuesday or Thursday or something like this. Every week would open her home for like an open master class, and we some of us from the choral society would just come sing for each other, and she would vocally coach us, and I would say she's my first voice teacher out there, Dell Hitchcock.
Shout out to Dell.
And she was my
first.
Thank you. That's right. And
thank you, Dell.
Yes. And so I would call her my first voice teacher. So I started studying, if you will, even though it was kind of public and it was a master classy type deal. I would say she's my voice teacher. And again, kept the piano going. Was still inspired on the piano. So when I got to college, I was just like, I guess I'll just be a music ed major. Because again, I come from a non-musical family. A family that has an appreciation for music. Every one of them, there's 6 of us. Like I said, I have 3 siblings and my parents. And all of us can carry a tune. We have an ear, you can match pitch at least. Mother and father sang in the choir, all that at church. But as far as formal study, I was the only one. And so there was a skepticism, rightful skepticism, very, very justified skepticism.
What are you going to do with a music degree?
You're going to be broke. and it was so true. I ended up being broke, but not because I pursued music education. That was the goal. So I got my music education degree with an equal emphasis in voice and piano as my major, instruments, which one didn't need to have, but for some reason I did it. Caught the opera bug halfway through, caught the performance bug, knew I didn't want to be a piano performer, and knew that I didn't want to teach in public schools. But again, I've started down this path. I've got to finish this degree program. Try to keep the folks at home happy. I could be like, look, I got the Bachelor of Music and Music Education. Okay, I'm certified to teach. I'm certified to make a job. This is a professional degree. So I kept with it even in the back of my mind, knowing I will never teach music in schools. And I am now 40, and I have never taught music in school. But I didn't change anything. Is the whole point. I just kept everything as it was. I just decided in my mind I wanted to be a vocal performer, but I kept I let everything else ride. Even the piano, kept that going. And my goodness, I don't miss practicing the piano. I do still have some things on my bucket list, though. I do have some concertos I'd love to do. Free time. I know
that's great.
But the master, be again like under the thumb of a metronome and an empty practice room. But it might be fun to do it just so I can collaborate with a symphony in ways that I have never before. I mean, with my fingers, right? Definitely a lot with my throat, but not with fingers.
So what are you thinking? Like Beethoven concerto, first half of the symphony, second half of the symphony, Wagner arias, tenor arias. That would be amazing.
I would love to do Rhapsody in Blue with orchestra. I don't like the piano duet arrangement, or excuse me, not the piano. What am I saying? The solo piano arrangement. That's a little too monotonous.
Okay.
I want to do it with orchestra. I want to do the Rachmaninoff Second.
Wow.
And
That's ambitious.
I want to do Carnival of the Animals with that's two pianos, and a chamber orchestra. Obviously, it's the cutest piece, not the easiest, but also not as hard as something like Rock 2.
Sure.
Do I have anything else? Nope, that's it. And that's way more than enough. And it's probably more than I'm going to get around to do.
Yeah.
But maybe some of the Chopin preludes.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, but that's all, whatever. I'm a singer now. I'll pursue that at some point. Anyway, so after undergrad is when I said, okay, no more piano, no more education, certification, blah, blah, blah. Now it's time. I'm going to be a vocal performer. I would say that decision I made in 2004, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And where did you go? Did you do a master's then?
Yeah, I had a year off because I had been in school since kindergarten. And it went straight to UGA, University of Georgia, and it took me 5 years there. And again, not because of any slack, as the opposite. I wasn't slacking off changing majors every 10 minutes. I was just carrying way more. The music education alone was, I think, 128 hours.
Yeah.
Well, then here I come in, adding all these extra choral groups, adding all these extra opera stuff. Why?
Right.
Yeah, I came in as a pianist. They accepted me as a pianist initially, and then I did a voice, audition too. They let me in. And I just continued. I just added stuff.
Yeah.
So many people subtract and then end up with stuff they don't need. I ended up with all this extra stuff that I didn't need but that I wanted. So I had been in school from age 4 or 5 up till 2000. I graduated in 2004.
Yeah.
And
for
I
people
had not applied basically. I had
Right.
not applied to go directly to grad school, nor did I know specifically that I did want to do the performance track. So,
right. Yeah, for people who don't know, when you do music education, specifically music education, you're not only required to take education classes, of course, but for music, it's special because you have to learn, you have to have a certain proficiency in every instrument.
Orchestra, band, guitar. Yeah.
So
it's all of it. Yeah.
Clarinet, flute,
woodwinds.
Saxophone, trumpet. Of course, you aced the trumpet part, but then
had brass methods,
you had
woodwind methods, guitar methods, string methods, choral methods, conducting, all of it. And then, of course, all the other stuff that every music major has to do with the histories and the theories and the instrumentation and arranging.
It's a massive amount of work.
And being required to be in performing groups.
Yeah.
Then I was in the performing groups I had to be in, aka the concert choir, whatever they called it, the chamber choir. But then also the other stuff that I added on top of, opera ensemble. Well, I want to do that. Oh, it's 1 credit hour. Oh yeah, that 1 credit hour, and you ended up in rehearsals for 6 hours a week for one measly credit hour.
Yeah, that's crazy. So what was that?
Fine.
So what did you do in your sort of gap year?
Straight after I graduated, I graduated in May of 2004. Well, by the end of that month or early June, I was over at Inspiration Point, Arkansas, which is near Eureka Springs. It's opera in the Ozarks. You probably heard of the Ozarks.
I've heard of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I spent a very, very, very fun summer there doing Don Cairo, that great tenor role. Don Cairo.
Marriage of Figaro.
No. That's Curzio. You think Curzio? Don Cairo and Carmen.
Oh, Carmen. Yeah.
You wouldn't assume I would do the baritone, would you? But I always defended myself. I was always like, well, they offered it to me. Well, it's notated in treble clef. It's a tenor role as far as I'm concerned. So, I did Don Cairo, and I did Mercury and Orpheus in the Underworld the same summer. Oh my gosh,
great!
So that was that summer.
I did a Carmen where the Don Cairo was a tenor.
Oh, good.
Yeah. I think that's totally legitimate, actually.
Sure, why not?
Yeah.
I mean, just like having Donnie Lowe in Merry Widow.
Yeah.
Have him sing.
Yeah, exactly. Sort of a baritone.
Yeah. And also, Eisenstein is often a tenor, but often a baritone also. Anyway, so that was that summer. Then I just juggled a bunch of things. I sang in the Atlanta Opera Chorus. I had a job as a paraprofessional in a kindergarten. I'm talking about my off year now. After Opera in the Ozarks, I came back to Georgia where I didn't have anything. I had a church job that carried over from when I was still studying in college. So I had the church job. I was a paraprofessional in a kindergarten classroom for a year. Sang with the Opera Chorus. Continued to offer my piano services to some of the. There's a theater downtown Athens that had me a lot. Unlike the one I told you was constructed, the big one for off-Broadway tours. There's another one that's historical theater. Actually, it was a historical black theater.
Okay.
It's called the Morton Theater. Anyway, but they had a thing. Their resident ensemble was called Athens Creative Theater. And again, it was not. It was only semi-professional. Anyway, but I played in the pit there. They would just have me there on the keyboard playing sound effects.
Great.
So that was that year, and then
when you sang. Sorry, I want to. I like to get the details and then sort of focus in on some points. When you sang in the chorus at the Atlanta Opera, I had the same conversation with Charles Castronova the other day because he was in the chorus. He started out, his first opera job was he auditioned for the LA chorus and got in. And of course, this was in Domingo's heyday.
Great.
His first production was singing in the chorus with Domingo singing Pagliacci.
Nice.
So, of course, that had an amazing impact on him. Do you happen to remember any of the singers? Any of the soloists that you?
I do. I sang the first chorus I sang there was Fidelio.
Okay.
And in Cliff Forbes was the Florestan. And
He's been to Deutsche Oper a couple times.
I'm not surprised. And then fast forward, what was that? 12 years later, in 2017, I got to cover him as Samson. In Dallas Opera. So so I remember Cliff well. There's a great bass called Kurt Link. Do you know Kurt?
Kurt Link.
He's don't know that. As far as I could be wrong, but I believe he's a Wisconsinite.
Okay.
And he sang Rocco, and it was really great.
Yeah.
Trying to remember who some of the rest of the cast. Cliff was one I had my eyes on the most, just as being a tenor. And then years later I got to actually cover him. So small world and all
that's
that.
Such a hard role, Florestan. You're
it's
just
crazy.
Cooling your jets until.
Or actually, you cool your jets all of Act 1, and you come out and sing the hardest thing you could be asked to sing.
Exactly.
And then you're cooling your jets again. I mean, the rest of the night is fine. Aria as hard as it can be, but my gosh, the rest of the night is just okay. All right. Paycheck in 45 more minutes.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. Oh gosh. So, after your gap year,
went right back to school, not too far away, just over in Atlanta, just 1 hour drive from Athens, Georgia State University in downtown Atlanta. Vocal performance, did a master's degree there, 2 years there.
Great.
Did some auditions the summers in between all the school years. I went to do a pay-to-sing program in Italy called...
I hate those.
La Musica Lirica. Well, we all start somewhere, right?
Yeah, but I mean, I know these places. They do some good for young singers.
Yeah, it's experience.
Yeah, but
experience you got to pay to get.
Yeah, exactly. I guess it's more about the way they sort of sell them. Sometimes they sell them big. They sell them real big.
They do. I even saw. Yes, I remember even reading in some sort of welcome packet, or like, when I was accepted to one of these, I won't say which, and I see I say, well, congratulations, you've been accepted. Now, however, the tuition is this, and we can only provide so much financial aid, assistance, or whatever. Consider discussing an early inheritance with an aged relative, and I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's that kind of stuff.
Just to go and be told, hey, okay, now you're going to sing, Gerardo, or you're going to sing in the chorus, and
I realize, it's a lot of times it's. This with the people who run them, they're fantastic people. Many of them singers or former singers, and it's just a capitalistic move that they're pulling. Trying and they do care about helping singers too. I'm sure they do,
and they don't have the funding they need.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's that kind of stuff where it's like, you think you can take out a loan?
Mm-hmm. I think the absolute...
Oh, you can put our tuition on your credit card. Oh, I can? Oh, in that case.
Yes. Oh, so I have to even pay another guy that plus interest. Okay.
Yeah.
I know. I think the worst is when in the young artist years when you have to pay an application fee.
Oh yeah,
and they don't even refund it, even if they don't end up hearing you. So you've made a recording at your own expense, you've shipped things at your own expense, and you've met a deadline. Fastidiously met a deadline. You've sent them $30 just so they'll open that piece of mail,
right?
And then they don't even hear you. I think that's awful,
right?
And maybe that doesn't go. Probably does.
I mean, the universities do it too. The private universities do it as well, and the public universities. There's always an application fee, and
big college.
It's depressing.
It's a thing.
Yeah,
you're right.
Yeah. So anyway,
I understand charging a fee if they're going to hear you live in New York, because I mean they can't, those studios that they hear you in aren't free, and the pianist is usually provided. They're paying the pianist. That makes sense to me. But when they don't even give you an audition, and thanks but no thanks, and they keep your $30 a pop.
Also these are opera companies, and they're looking for talent.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it behooves them to hear as many singers as they possibly can and spend the money. That's called investment. Invest in the future talent. It's depressing when you have when you pay all this money for school, you still have school loans, you're living in New York to try and get ahead by being there, being available for all these opera companies that come through there and hear young singers. You're there. You're ready to go.
Yeah.
So you're inevitably paying a massive rent as well. And you're probably working a waitress job or some other kind of temp work and stuff like that. Yeah. And then the company that you want to sing for is also charging you a fee just to audition. Whew, it's a tough pill to swallow.
Whew. Depressing to think about, honestly. It is. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I've always vowed that if I ever hit it big, I would want to, endow like a voice competition and take into account, like means test the prize money. It's like, okay, you've already won like a zillion prizes. You're great. You're going to be great. You got plenty of prize money. Let's just open up the pool a little bigger. And like, I don't know how that sounds, but I know it sounds like pie in the sky, Pollyanna, but like, I'm pretty sold on the idea. It would be money that I would raise and that I would, personally invest in, because I vividly remember that kid, from Georgia who just had a weird voice for a 20-something-year-old.
Right.
That my voice is just now, I'm just now where I need to be, but my goodness, there were many chances to quit. So many. And and everyone that always won, I never won a vocal competition except the Wagner ones.
Yeah.
And even that didn't come till 2015, and I'm 34 years old at the time, I think.
Okay.
The Metropolitan Opera National Council auditions never advanced me beyond the district. I never got to the regional competition or whatever, and I was in my late 20s. I wasn't some little kid like cracking notes and and pushing. And I mean, I wasn't a perfect singer. Goodness gracious, I wasn't a perfect singer. But I never got past the district. And I did the listeners. I did the Londons. I did the Liederkrantz. I did Giulio Gotti. I did probably good. I don't know if I said Gerda Listener yet. I mean, I did everything. I sent in all my applications, and I was like, okay, whatever. That'll just be some extra. That'll be some extra spending money that I definitely not past the first round of any of that stuff.
Did you ever do the Tucker?
I don't think so, because I think the Tucker
you don't apply for.
Oh, you don't.
No, they give you a call.
That's right. That's why I never did it. But I did. But again, I did. I won first. My first Wagner competition was New York City Wagner Society, and it was first place.
Yeah. So well, you know what?
Once I hit the stuff I was supposed to hit, then the money started coming.
Yeah, you're laughing all the way to the bank now. So
I'm doing great now, but buddy, I know the struggle. Yeah,
and I'll tell you what. They better make a big stink about it when you debut at the Met.
Oh, they won't have to. I will.
I'll drink to that. Cheers. I had this idea one time. I don't know. People always say, if you have a business idea, don't tell people about it. But this goes along the lines of what we were talking about. I was watching, I think it was Real Sports. You know this show on HBO, Real Sports? Brian Gumbel hosts it. It's a sports sort of documentary commentary series, and they did a section on this guy. What he does is he finds they're mostly very, very poor baseball players. In Costa Rica, Dominican Republic, that kind of thing. Yeah. He signs them to a contract saying that we will pay for all your living expenses. We will pay all your travel expenses and professional expenses, all your professional travel expenses. Like if you have to travel somewhere to try out for a team, we'll pay for that. We'll pay for your housing.
With an eye toward getting in like the minors?
With an eye towards, eventually going pro.
Yeah.
So they do this in return for the rest of their life, for the rest of their baseball career. They get a percentage. This company gets a percentage. Now, smart. When you're dealing with, a run of operas where we might make 20 or 30,000, maybe 10% doesn't sound so much worth it. But if you're running a company that sponsors these baseball players and they're making $30 million,
smart,
$100 million, and this company is making a percentage of that for the rest of their life. So obviously you got to have an eye for talent. That's the scout. And you got to have a financial backer, because you better have like $200 million in the bank if you're, depending on how many guys you want to sponsor.
And I thought to myself, a lot in order to get because that's competitive too, obviously.
Exactly.
As there's no guarantee that you got to cast a wide net.
Like you said, injuries, everything,
everything.
Yeah. What if the guy, quits?
Yeah.
I think that's why
a pitcher who doesn't want to do Tommy John or something. Who knows?
Yeah, right. Exactly. He doesn't want to do Tommy John surgery, or finds out that he can't play at a certain level. Finds out that he misses his family too much, or whatever. That's why. I think they vet these guys
right.
to the hilt, and also, these guys from Costa Rica, Mexico, Dominican Republic. These guys are really. They're working their butts off for not much money.
They're wanting to get out.
Yeah. It could only be an investment of maybe $75,000 a year, and that would take care of all their expenses.
Right.
And the payout is great if they end up with a multi-million-dollar contract.
Good thinking, man. Good thinking.
So why couldn't we do that with opera singers? Why couldn't we find Clay Hilley when he was 25, 26 years old? Put him in an apartment that we pay for in New York City, pay for his voice lessons, pay for any kind of coachings that he needs, pay for his acting, although your acting is fantastic. We're going to get to that because you blew me away in the Siegfried so much. We talked a little bit about that. I mean, that was by far one of the most. I was just having so much fun sitting in my chair watching you.
I'm honored, man. I'm honored.
With the is not the water nymphs. Water nymphs?
Right, that works. It's synonymous with Rhine maidens.
Rhine maidens. There we go.
Water nymphs. Wassernymphe. I think I like that sound too. Rhine maidens. Reines Töchtern.
Okay.
Und reines Mädchen. But I like Wassernymph. Nymph.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm thinking to myself, why couldn't we do that? Why couldn't I find?
I think it does happen in the name brand programs, in the Marilla and the Adler programs, and the Ryan Center. And I mean, I think there are.
You think they get like a private sponsor who kind of does that, or
I think some do, but not like a giant corporate thing. No, I'm talking about culture vultures. I'm talking about like just benevolent, wonderful, good-hearted folks who have been patrons for decades and who have extra money and maybe don't have a lot of kids or nephews and nieces and just they're getting old. But you know what I'm talking about. That does exist, but I don't think on the corporate level. But that's something to think about.
I'm thinking you have basically two people, plus assistants that sort of run thing. Maybe you might have to have three. One financial guy keeps an eye on all the funds. One guy who scouts for talent. Right. That in my business scenario, that's what I was thinking I could be.
Yeah.
And maybe one guy for law, because you're going to be dealing with people from different countries. You're going to be dealing with a lot of contracts,
right,
and stuff like that. But then, so the financial part, then you just got to find, fortunately, you go to any opera company, you get a list of donors.
Sure.
And you just go down the list. You start at the top. At the Metropolitan, they're on the wall.
Exactly. They want to be known.
Exactly.
They're known because they want to be known.
Exactly. And I mean, a lot of times these people, they want to help the arts,
Yes. And
this
they don't
way.
know. Yeah, exactly. Instead of just having Mr. Gelb come to them all the time. And
right.
Could we expect the same?
Right.
The same 300,000 this year?
Right.
Mr.
Exactly.
So-and-so? And they could be, actually, let's try something new. What if we invested in the at the earlier stages? I like it.
And this way, investing is the exact word, because it's not a donation. They could feasibly get
a return.
We could feasibly get their return.
Yeah, we're not talking about kissing money goodbye, are we?
Right, exactly. Now, of course, it takes time, and even more time than like a professional athlete would take. It would take, it takes sometimes years. And, look in your case now, we're now 15 years from when you were 25 years old.
And you're
hitting your stride.
And nobody's doing a professional baseball salary, really.
No, they're not. But what if we had a roster of 100 singers? 100 singers running around the world, and we're getting a percentage of every opera contract that they have. Now, one advantage that we have is that an opera career is longer than like a professional athlete.
This is true.
So an opera singer, where a professional athlete, if we're talking about baseball, if they're, if they're staying healthy, stuff like that, 15 years, 20 years if you're really in good shape, if you really take care of yourself. But an opera career, 30 years easily, 35 years. If you're a bass, could be 50 years.
It's true.
You know what I mean? So anyway,
they can start earlier than
if anybody wants to try that idea with me, or how we think we could kind of get that done, boy, I'd love to hear it. I'd love to have you on the podcast and talk about stuff like that, because, it goes along these lines of what we were talking about, Clay, about these, just sort of helping out these young singers. How many singers, and I don't know anything about this, but how many singers sort of just give up because they don't think it's worth the money? They got the voice. I always hear this, it takes more than a voice. It takes a lot of dedication, a lot of hard work and things like that. Well, yeah, but it also takes persistence. It takes, the will to allow yourself to be sort of poor for 10 years, poor for 15 years maybe, before you get somewhere where you're making decent money.
Educated guess as far as percentages. I mean, I mean, maybe 20% of the people I came up with are still pursuing this. Maybe.
So 80% are quitting.
I think so, at least.
And maybe of those people, how many would you guess that would have the voice? Just talking about the voice, would have the voice that they could have a career, because that's what theaters are looking at the most when you do an audition.
Right. Yeah, of that 80%, probably 80% of those, maybe 65. Conservative.
Yeah, I would say
they really got it. But
yeah,
again,
I would say 50 or
60%. It would take more than the voice. It takes more than even others accepting and acknowledging your talent. It's a matter of how much you're going to put up with.
Yeah.
How long can you write down your parents' address as yours in your mid-30s? How long?
Yeah,
how long
exactly.
And yeah, it's just oh gosh, it's
yeah, here we are in Berlin. We haven't seen our families. I haven't seen my parents in over 2 years. I haven't seen them face to face in over 2 years. Well, I mean, a lot of that's because of COVID, of course. Yeah, but usually it's once a year I see them in the summers.
Mm-hmm. I was able to go back, actually, in between the second and the third cycle.
Okay.
I was able to go back.
Your parents living at home? They're
in the same house I grew up in.
Oh, that's great.
Right at Metro Atlanta, Athens. I went upstate New York to Utica to work Tristan with my mentor John Frederick West.
Shout out,
John.
Big
Frederick
shout
West.
out to John Frederick West.
That's right. He'll shout big back.
I'm sure he's got some clips on YouTube. Go check him out. He's an awesome tenor.
I mean, my goodness, was definitely set a standard during his time on the stage. But he's now in retirement, and like I said, in Utica, New York. I've coached the role of Tristan with him now, I think, 3 different weeks, 2 different weeks in 2020, 1 week in 2021, and I probably will get back with him a couple of times this year because I have a big one coming up in November, but I can't say where just yet. It's very major. It's very big. It will be announced any minute now, and I'll let Eric announce it whenever it does get announced.
Yeah.
Anyway,
perfect.
But yeah, Tristan is one of those things. And it's going to be a remount. That's the thing.
Okay.
And so I won't get many rehearsals. It's Tristan of all things.
Oh, yeah.
It's the pinnacle. When I first started studying with John in 2015, and we were talking about roles to look at, roles to put on your list, and he was like, the world is your oyster minus Tristan at that point. So that's 2015. He was like, I would just give that a minute. That takes so much out of your psyche. I mean, they're talking about these deep issues, and Tristan is this, has this love affair with the darkness and death, and only through dying, a literal earthly death is the only way we are reborn into what we're ever supposed to be, and the only way he and Isolde can be a thing because she's betrothed to King Mark is that they both have to take the potion and die. And he's just constantly singing these odes to the darkness and cursing the daylight. And anyway, so it's not just vocally taxing, although it is, but it's just like this thing where it just sort of warps your mind if you let it get in there too deep. Anyway, it's a weird philosophies, but beautiful music. And
you know who Thomas Moser is?
Yeah.
He's in Berlin.
Really?
Yeah, you might. I don't know.
For
Get
sure.
him up for a little chat at least.
Love to.
Because he's done it Wiener Staatsoper, and I think there's a recording. It might be like a live recording.
Yeah.
I think he's done Tristan a few times.
Good.
Yeah, he's still around.
Right. Well, it was one of those career-defining moments with John West. He did it the most noteworthy. One of his earliest, most noteworthy Tristans was the reopening of the Prince Regetten Theater in Munich. It had been closed down for some decades, maybe not. Don't quote me on the number of years, but for the grand reopening, they had him and I believe it was Waltraud Maya to do a production of Tristan. And the way he puts it, when he got back to New York, his agent had Prost. His agent, and there's the clink. His agent had a quote, a stack of contracts, a foot high, right there on his desk as a result of that. And I'm happy to say, and humbled to say, proud to say, all the things that being invited to do this new ring here in Berlin has really put me on the map in a way that I just could not be more grateful for. And but I'm finally getting to experience the upside of all the shit show that was ages 27 to 37 or so. I thought turning 30 was going to be this magic moment.
Yeah.
As I knew I was destined for this bigger stuff. And I was singing like the Pinkertons and Jose's. That's big for a 20.
That's great.
That's big for a 28-year-old, 27-year-old.
That's great.
And I was like, now I'm 30. It's like, okay, now people are going to see me for the Payachis. They're going to see me in the Turandots. They're going to see me in bigger German repertoire. No, ma'am. They just, I was never in the room singing for the right person with the right imagination until John West. John actually came over. Francesco Zambello had him come over to coach some of us bigger voice tenors that were young artists in 2012. And that's where John and I got to know each other. Mm-hmm. And we were Facebook friends pretty much, immediately after that. And he sort of kept up with me. And, when I would make updates to my website, I would announce those updates on Facebook. And he would, whatever, he would click, go over there. And if I put new clips up, but by around 2015, he reached out to me and was, after having listened to some of my newest clips, and was like, I really think you need to come spend some time with me. Your voice is 95% there. There's some stylistic things we got to talk about. There's some language things, just some simple phrasing things that are going to pack a better punch than sort of the way you're approaching it now. And I only say this as someone who's been in the trenches and all this kind of stuff. And so I went. That was the first year I went and spent a whole week with him, like the old school sort of a mentor and apprentice deal. I mean, every day we slept, we ate together.
Need that.
Yeah, and we need that daily boom, boom, boom reinforcement. And yeah, he revolutionized me in a matter of like 4 days. I'm not kidding.
That's awesome.
Not kidding.
Greg Kunda did the same thing with me.
It was wonderful, man.
I mean, shout out to Greg.
Hi, Greg.
He is such a menschy dude. So
magnificent, man.
I think we were both working. I was working at like a little summer festival outside of Vienna, and he was singing at Theater an der Wien. And we met. I think we had went out for beers one time, and I was preparing Des Grieux in Massenet's Manon, and I told him about it, and I said, yeah, I mean, I really haven't had that much time to coach, and he's like, oh, I'll coach you, and I was like, oh, really? He said, yeah, that's great. It's my repertoire and stuff like that. So I said, okay, well, should I organize a pianist? He said, yeah, organize a pianist and 2 or 3 hours in Vienna, and we'll go through the role, and I'll coach you. And I was like, oh man, fantastic. So I show up, and he shows up right on time, and he's got his score with him. I don't know how he had his score with him. Or maybe he didn't. He had a score with him. But he said to me, I coached this role with Alfredo Kraus. And if you want, I'll give you all the same phrasings.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I was like, oh yeah, I want.
We'll take it.
We'll take it. And he didn't charge me a dime.
Mensch. When I met Greg, covering Des Grieux, but the Puccini one. Also in Dallas, I mentioned covering Cliff Forbes in Dallas as Samson. And this was Des Grieux. I was singing the noble role of the lamplighter.
Yeah, good.
But that's where I met Greg, and
he's a menschy dude, isn't he?
I know. If I have a question about the career, I have a question about an email that I want to send, or the way I want to approach, somebody or something. I can send him a message on Facebook, and he just writes me back just the most sincere, honest, heartfelt and supportive things, and can never say enough good about Greg Kunda.
Yeah, it's never I've done that too. I mean, I had a couple questions about some obscure bel canto stuff, and he's sung all that stuff, all the French stuff, all the bel canto stuff, and now he's one of the world's best Otellos. You
know what David Lomelli said at the cast party of the Des Grieux opening night. He said when he was introducing Greg, he said, "Now, and the next man, a man I've always looked up to, his talent and him as a person, and also he's the only individual I know that in one season sang both the Rossini Otello and the Verdi Otello in the same year."
My gosh, that's amazing.
Greg.
Shout out to Dave Lomelli.
Hi,
he's
David.
casting director now at Dallas, Bayerische Staatsoper.
And Santa Fe.
Santa Fe.
Yeah.
Wow.
And others. I believe he
Got
has.
a real nice.
I believe he has a casting business. I think he's.
Yeah, good for him.
Yeah. Casting consultation.
Yeah.
Deal.
Yeah. And he's also a tenor. Or was.
Magnifico.
Magnifico tenor. Tenore. Tenore magnifico. So, okay, we're jumping all over the timeline here. Let's get back. Let's get back, because there's one place where I want to go.
I think so. Is it upstate New York?
No, a little farther east.
Oh, farther east. Are we trying to get all the way up to Charlottenburg?
Not that far.
Oh, you made an intermediate place. Okay, gotcha.
So after your master's.
Our one common university. Yes, got it.
Exactly.
Okay, so finished the master's in Atlanta. Did Pay to Sings. That's where we got off track last time.
No. That's
we
good.
launched off into a tangent.
That's
a very noble tangent.
We love tangents on this podcast.
So we did the Pay to Sing in Italy for 2 years. And then the next year was... I finished grad school, went to Chautauqua in the summer of 2007, and that's the year we met, but we don't remember it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wait. I was in the chorus, and you were saying street scene.
Yeah.
I was in the chorus as a studio artist there. And then I moved
to probably the tallest Sam in the history of street scene.
But wasn't your partner, was it Deborah, Deb Zalik? She's not that short, so it worked, right?
Oh, the casting with Deborah, shout out to Deborah Zalik. The casting with her was fantastic.
Yeah.
She was wonderful.
Yeah.
It was a little strange when, the bully of the street kind of came up. He basically came up to my chin.
That's right.
It was like we played it sort of like he had like a Napoleon complex,
Sure. I see no reason why that doesn't work.
But, he really had to punch up at me, so.
For real.
Anyway.
That was 2008. Then I moved to New York City because I wanted to build the old Rolodex. I couldn't have afforded to just move up there. I didn't want to be like waiting tables. I didn't want to have to work 9,000 different jobs just to pay the rent every month. So it was two birds with one stone. It was being able to move up there and also be able to use Uncle Sam student loan money to alleviate my living costs. So I actually went to the Manhattan School of Music for a year to do the professional studies certificate. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, in 2008 for just 1 year. It's just a 1 year program. It was great. I was in Warren Jones's singers and pianists seminar.
Warren Jones is a collaborative pianist.
Magnifico.
Right. Shout out to Warren.
Hi, Warren. And also Donna Vaughn's opera studio class.
Who was your teacher then?
Immensely. Mark Oswald. Learned so much from Mark.
We're from the same part of Pennsylvania. Shout out to Mark.
Amazing teacher.
Yeah.
Amazing teacher.
He's such a great guy, too.
Wonderful man. Mm-hmm. And Tom Morocco was Tom Morocco's class. Tom Morocco played he was my accompanist for my certificate recital that I did. We did 22 minutes worth of Rachmaninoff songs. I never sung in Russian. Actually, before or since, I've never done any Russian. It's appropriate for me in some cases, but I still just haven't had a chance to. And Tom was like, I can commit to playing for you if you promise to do a giant chunk of Rachmaninoff. I said, okay, I promise. So that was nice.
Great.
So yeah, Tom, and it was a wonderful year. Again, built the Rolodex. Didn't have to, book flights and hotels and just to come up and do the Young Artist audition circuit in October, November, December
That's
every
huge.
year. Then I went straight from there after graduating in 2009, right up to Boston University Opera Institute, where you and I were not simultaneously members, but we're at least the same stomping ground as the other at some point. I lived in Brookline on the sea line.
That's a beautiful area.
Cleveland Circle, I think.
Yeah.
And so I lived on Inglewood Avenue, one stop shy of the last stop on the sea line.
Right, that's right by Boston College.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
And so I was at Boston University Opera Institute for 2 years, graduated in 2011, and that was my final year of collecting collegiate paper. A music education degree in 2004, Bachelor of Music, Master of Music Performance 2007, Professional Studies Certificate 2009, Manhattan School of Music, and then finally an artist certificate from the Opera Institute.
Yeah, you'll never run out of toilet paper, that's for sure.
It's valuable in a pandemic.
Classic.
When did you use your music degrees the most? There was a pandemic in 2020, and things got weird. Things got really weird and emergencies had to happen. And,
oh my gosh. Okay. We're going to take a pause, have a little pee break. We'll be right back.
All the beers.
We going here? Yeah. I think we're back. I can make this sort of.
Wir sind zurück.
Oh, we're away. There we go. I think we're going. Yeah, the counter is on. All right, we're back, folks.
Hello.
Oh, let me get this door. Annette's got some meetings.
Ah.
All right. So, yeah, Boston University, that was a great experience for me. I did my master's there, and then I did the Opera Institute after that.
Cool.
So I studied with Phyllis Curtin for my master's, and then with Sharon Daniels.
I love Sharon.
Big shout out to Sharon.
Hi, Sharon. What roles were you able to do in grad school in OI?
I did Bohème, my first Bohème. And they did Romeo and Juliet as well, but I did Tybalt.
I did Romeo there.
Yeah.
2011.
Yeah, great. Mm-hmm. It's a great place. It's a great place to live as a student, of course. It's amazing. Boston is just incredible. But also, I think the Opera Institute is a pretty great place. It's sort of like a fellowship. They pay you to go there. It's usually you need to get like a side hustle or something. Sometimes people worked at cafes or sang in the chorus of Boston Lyric Opera. I did that too.
Yeah, I went ahead and took out loans there because I really didn't want to,
struggle.
Be working at all moments.
Yeah.
I wanted to be free. I wanted to be free to go to audition in New York. I was in a long distance relationship with a girl in Atlanta at the time. I just wanted my free time.
Yeah. I hear you.
And yeah, the stipend was good, but it wasn't, it wasn't, and they're honest with you up front. It's not really enough to make it. You said it. You
it's not enough to live on.
I did have a church job my second year there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Everybody seemed to have church jobs too.
Yeah.
But they're doing 2 main stage productions.
Yeah.
And then, when I started there, Sharon started this thing called the Fringe Festival. I don't know if that was there when you were there.
That's still going strong. Well, it was when I was there.
And they're doing like these 1-act operas. Sometimes they're English. I remember we did like the 7 Deadly Sins by Kurt Weill. So like these really interesting pieces. I sang Don José in the Tragédie de Carmen. Unbelievable experience because we had a guest director come in. Was I'm blanking on his name. His father used to run Boston Lyric, and oh my gosh, he's gonna be so mad. His father used to be the artistic director at Boston Lyric, and he's also a director. Leo. No, I'm sorry, awesome director, but. I can't remember your name, but you were awesome, and we had a great time. I sort of had like a acting breakthrough with that production.
Nice.
For me. That was sort of like
Tragedy is tough.
It was tough, but it was such a great experience.
I did the Bizet Carmen, and then I did La Tragédie, and I think Tragédie has some. It's just as hard. It's just as difficult, maybe if not more so, because you've got to do that knife fight and then do. The flower song. Crazy.
They changed the order
of a lot of stuff.
Yeah. It's definitely one of my favorite pieces. It's got because the action just keeps going.
Well, it's all dark
for 90 minutes.
It's all dark because it wasn't written for an opera comique.
Right.
I heard a director say Carmen is a comedy. Carmen is a comic opera all the way up to the card trio.
Right.
That's true.
For people who don't know, Carmen was originally written for the Opera Comique in Paris. And the Opera Comique has certain guidelines that every opera that you perform there has to have. It has to have comedic elements. It has to have spoken dialogue. And
giant chorus.
Yeah, giant chorus. It also has to have a ballet.
Has to.
Has to have a ballet. So Bizet was, he had these restrictions or, these things he had to put in the opera. And what they did when they made Tragédie de Carmen was they basically just took all those out.
And they started back to what I was saying about how the director said it's not a tragedy until the card trio. What does the tragedy start with? It's not that's not what the overture is. No, it's
right. It's the card aria.
Yeah,
that's right.
It's like a I think it's like a clarinet solo.
No, it's cello. It's cello.
Oh, cello that plays Carmen's line there.
Yeah. It's fantastic.
Now there is about one page of really hokey music toward the end that you just know ain't Bizet. It was like usually like this funeral procession or something. Sorry, Peter Brook.
Yeah, Peter Brook. Yeah, Peter Brook is the guy who sort of organized this. He's a very prominent director. British, I believe. Is he British? Or is he French?
I don't know. Brook sounds kind of British to me.
I think he's British.
If I'm not mistaken,
not sure about that. Sorry,
if I'm not
people.
mistaken, the first Escamillo and first Carmen are still married. Greer Grimsley and Loretta Bybee.
Oh, that's great.
Pretty sure they were the first two.
Okay.
I think they debuted the Peter Brook Carmen.
Okay. There's a video where they tried.
I never saw it.
There's a video. I don't know if it's the original cast or not, but it's they made like a movie of it. I think the first time they did it was in Paris, and somebody told me about the set. They did it. They chose a theater in the Round.
Yeah.
I don't know where they hid the orchestra somewhere, but
right.
It was a theater in the Round, and the stage was just a disc in the middle of this room, and it was covered with sand. 3 or 4 inches of sand that people had to walk through the entire opera. Fall in the sand, throwing sand at each other, kicking the sand, whatever. Probably inhaling the sand.
You think their scores still have just like in the binding, just grains of sand from the show?
Exactly. Crazy. But then somebody had an idea to make maybe Peter Brook or his estate sponsored making it's sort of a movie.
Yeah, I'd love to see it.
Movie version. Cool. I don't know if you can find that. I don't know. I'm not sure that's on YouTube or not. Might have some copyright on it. So
sounds cool. It's just so funny. All these connections. So Boston released me. So not only did we both do Romeo and Juliet in Boston in our time there, I was actually released to go do La Tragédie in Indianapolis Opera professionally. So I was released from
That's nice.
BU to go do that. It fell right between. We did this Stephen Paulus opera, The Postman Always Rings Twice, and then about 4 weeks later, rehearsals for Romeo began, and right in that interval between, the Tragédie fit perfectly.
Yeah.
So you did Tragédie as part of the Fringe Festival, right?
Yeah.
And then also you mentioned the Seven Deadly Sins.
Yeah.
One time in Virginia Opera, 2016, I sang Canio because we double billed Seven Deadly Sins and Pagliacci.
Wow, that's an interesting evening.
It worked.
Okay.
I mean, it worked. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, all these fun connections.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Stemmed from our time in Boston.
Seven Deadly Sins. I mean, first of all, do they even make voices that are appropriate for what Kurt Weill really wrote for?
We had a fabulous cabaret singer, a legit cabaret singer from over here. Her name was Ute Gefrere.
Wow.
Ute Gefrere came over and sang the cabaret.
Yeah, because
lead.
I mean, he was quite possibly writing for singers, for these pieces to be performed in either very small theaters or in some kind of cabaret setting.
Yes.
Probably with no miking, but not really opera singers.
How do you do that?
Yeah, not really opera singers.
Right.
It was like it had this, sort of we'll call it a legit belt.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah, the forerunner of whatever's happening now, on Broadway.
Yeah. So, but very, very interesting composer, Kurt Weill.
I love it.
I mean, it's
absolutely love it.
Yeah.
I mean,
so different from everything else.
That's why I said when people ask me, well, how's street singing? Because not everyone's done street singing.
Yeah.
It's kind of a gem. It's kind of a rarity. I always say I'm not indifferent to any of it. Actually, I kind of hate a good bit of it. But what parts that I love, I could just listen to. That could be a desert island album for me. The stuff that I really like.
Yeah. One of his operas, I guess, an opera. Do we call it an opera? Shows. One of his shows that I'd love to do a deep dive on sometime is Mahagoni.
I'd love to do Mahagoni. Yeah.
Rise and Fall of Mahagoni.
Yes, John West never. He has a score of it, and he told me I should really learn the role of Jimmy Mahoney, and I'd love to do it anywhere, anytime. John never got to do it, so he I think he would kind of like to live through me on that role. Another one he never got to was Grimes. Unfortunately, he would have been perfect for it. He just never lined up. So
you've got the voice for Grimes.
He's eager
absolutely
to live through me on that one too.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Yeah, so Boston University. I mean, I think they did something really great there. I guess it was Phyllis Curtin who really organized the Opera Institute,
right,
and put it together. And she sadly passed. But she left quite a legacy, being a professional singer herself. And
she came out and did some master classes when I was there. She was still, relatively mobile. Yeah, we used to go out for her birthday. I believe was in December. And Sharon used to organize a trip out to the Berkshires.
Oh my gosh!
Where she had her own like personal petting zoo. Miss Curtin did.
Yeah,
with like goats, and llamas, and other, whatever other livestock. It was fun. I specifically remember she had 2 cats. One was Cuesta and the other was Quella.
Great.
So we'd go out and serenade Miss Curtin, and it was nice to be out there. So I'm glad that I got to quote unquote know her a little bit.
Did you ever see her apartment in Brookline? I guess she didn't have it. I think maybe she gave it up.
She had escaped out to the Berkshires entirely.
Well, she had both for a while. She's had the house in the Berkshires for 50 years or something. And then she had this apartment in Brookline and had this amazing, beautifully sounding Steinway Grand in their 9-foot grand. 9 foot? No, maybe 7 foot.
7 foot because it was very big in a house.
Yeah, in an apartment. Yeah. Funny story. That grand ended up with one of my agents right now, Miguel Rodriguez. Do you know Miguel?
No.
He used to. Did you remember Boston Baroque?
Yeah.
In Boston, he used to run that.
Okay.
He was the general director. No, artistic administrator. I don't know. He ran it.
Mm-hmm.
But now he's an agent.
Didn't know it.
And he ended up with her piano because he was a tenor. And studied with Phyllis when he was at Boston University, then ended up staying in Boston, and now he actually lives in Western Massachusetts as well.
Interesting.
With his piano.
Yeah, I met a lot of great. I got to know Mr. Floyd, Carlisle Floyd. We did Susanna my first year there, and I sang Sam.
No way! Yeah, that's great.
And Miss Curtin was the first Susanna. Mm-hmm. So I had Phyllis Curtin and Mr. Floyd there, and they've since gone. Also, again, I'm sorry to delve into the morose, but I mentioned the Postman Always Rings Twice. That's great. It's basically the genre is basically film noir, but for the opera stage. So 1930s, just sort of dark. Sort of some sort of drifter comes into town and hooks up with the wife, and they figure out a way to kill the husband.
Okay.
That story. Yeah. That's what this was. And he wrote the music, and they brought him in, and he was not a very old man, and I had sung his church music before, and he was a sweet guy, and unfortunately he succumbed to a stroke about 4 or 5 years later. It passed way too early. But all this time that I spent in Boston, I met all these people, and I'm just so glad that I was there when I was there.
Yeah, we should mention Bill Lumpkin too.
Hi, Bill.
Shout out to Bill. Such a great guy.
Bill is now the head of the Opera Institute. So it went from Miss Curtin's hands to Sharon's hands. And now Sharon, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think Sharon's still on voice faculty. Yeah. But she's handed over the artistic direction of the Opera Institute to Bill Lumpkin.
I think you're right about that. Yeah.
So hi, Bill.
Hi, Bill. Shout out to Bill.
Great coach, great conductor.
Yep. So you finish at Boston University's Opera Institute, 2011.
Went out to Arizona as a member. Well, actually, the summer after I graduated, Opera Institute 2011. I was an apprentice at St. Louis. I was one of their Jardine young artists.
Great
so that was 2011. I'd mentioned Chautauqua already, 07 and 08. Those were the summers I was in Chautauqua. And then I was at Central City. And again, we just lost Mr. Moriarty. Got to know John Moriarty very well. I was, if I may say so, I was one of his favorites, but for the opposite reason. Most people think you get in good with people by sucking up, and I guess you do. I mean, I guess flattery pays for a lot of people. It didn't really pay for him. Me, no. I would sit there, I would smart off to him, and he would just look at me and laugh. He'd be like, because he knew I was just kidding around.
He's bullshit guy. Like I know a lot of people that worked with him at NEC, and they were always like, "Oh, he's borderline like a tyrant."
I know, you're so scared. I was not scared of him for a second.
But he has got the most amazing sense of humor.
Yes, he was so funny.
I've heard some jokes from him.
I would crack a pun or smart off to him, and he would just laugh. He would point at me, and it was his busted ass teeth would be just cackling. Now this guy over here, that's exactly how I was at his age. We always had this joke about how his whole body would quake when he would laugh, because he's such a little man. He was a giant, as a person and as a musician, but just physically, just this tiny little leprechaun. They would just shake and convulse.
Right.
But most people, lived in absolute dread of him, and I just, it's not that I didn't respect him and didn't have a type of fear for him, but the fear was respect. It was just that, I think he just liked smart, witty people, and
I think he sort of came from a time where also it's like if you show up to his, aria class or something like that, and you weren't fully prepared, he was gonna
ill-advised.
He was gonna release the hounds on you.
That's ill-advised.
Yeah.
I never would have done that for sure. So I was there in 9 and 10 up in Central City, Colorado.
And
then, so up to 11 in St. Louis with the Jardine. That was right after finishing Boston. And then I went over to Arizona Opera, where I was in residence with them for a year. Almost a quasi-fest type deal. I got a weekly paycheck to sing small roles and cover big ones. And that sounds kind of vaguely like a fest system.
Okay.
like that you would find in Germany, but it's only for, they only had the budget for about one per voice type. So it was just, SATB. And they didn't even have a resident pianist.
This is like 2012 now, yeah?
This 11-12 season.
11 to 12, yeah. I did my first Carmen in
kidding.
Arizona.
Oh, cool. What year?
2005.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So I was done there in May of 2012, and then after then, I May of 2012 marks the end of my sort of college and year-long apprenticeships. Now I did, as we mentioned before, did go on to Glimmerglass in 12 and 13, but sort of that was just the summers and the time in between the fall, winter, and spring when one must work or starve or whatever. I was freelance and beating the drums and pounding the pavement and shaking the bushes and whatever your metaphor is for work. Got my first agent after 2012.
How did you get your agent?
I had some. It was from actually. I was religious about following up with people. 2011. There's this one day they call them the VIP auditions or whatever, and they bring it's toward the end of the festival season. So in St. Louis, that would be the end of June, and so for the last weekend is when you get all the agents from New York, all the whatever. A lot of casting directors would come catch the final week of the shows that are running in repertory at OTSL, and so they have one day set aside where all the young artists sing for this big panel of 35, 40 people. And St. Louis gave us the list of the people that were there. And so I just would go. I would reach out to every single one. Hi, my name is Clay Hilley. You heard me sing Macduff's aria. I am. Here's my resume. Here's what I do. Please let me know if you have any space on your roster. If you foresee any kind of collaboration being possible, or whatever, something to that effect. And I heard back from a few, and one agent kept me on file for a little while. So I didn't strike the agent right then. It was after I'd gone, and I just kept following up with people. I kept following up with a number of agents, being like, hey, look, I'm in New York. I wrote you on this day. After St. Louis, it's now audition time. Even if you don't want me on your roster, if you hear about any auditions that people on your roster are unable to fill, auditions they're unable to make it to, perhaps you put me in.
Good idea.
Or not, or whatever. It's up to you.
Good idea.
Whatever. Here I am.
Did you have like some, sorry to interrupt, do you have like some YouTube clips at this point, or some sound clips?
Yeah, I had tons of sound. I bootleg everything I do.
Yeah.
Every
I say that
single thing. Every sound my voice makes is recorded.
I tell people to do that all the time.
Yeah,
I'm just like,
I don't care.
Record everything. Maybe
care.
You can use 5% of it. Or
right.
maybe less.
Probably illegal. It's probably all illegal, but I don't care. I think singers.
No.
I'm sorry. I just believe firmly of the opinion that singers deserve to hear how they sound. Musicians deserve to keep track of their own craft. Okay.
Bumbledorf, Germany is not going to call another theater on your behalf.
No.
You've got to record your own performance, and if it's good enough, you shop it around.
Absolutely. So yeah, I would send record. And as a matter of fact, so one of these agents actually kind of provisionally had me not on his roster, but was putting me up for things, just like I'd ask him.
All right.
And that went fine. But even then, I was on the roster. It was after I had stepped in Arizona, the final dress of Aida. Long story short, the tenor didn't want to sing for very good reason. He was single cast, and the rest of the cast was double cast. So he was having to do night after night after night after night.
Oh man,
great tenor Arnold Rawls. You know Arnold.
I love Arnold.
We love Arnold.
Shout out to
Arnold.
Arnie.
Kind of was the first. We sung Greg Cooney's praises, of course, and we should. But Arnold was really the first sort of mentor type that I had back from 2011 in Arizona. So I was there singing The Messenger, of course.
Yeah, he's great.
And he had to do all these rehearsals, bam, 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 all back to back. And him being single cast, and he was like, well, I'm not singing this final dress rehearsal. I'm not singing 2 final dress rehearsals and then opening the next night, just consecutive nights.
That's crazy.
The problem was the Opera House had invited school children, probably high schoolers, to be present, not at the final orchestra dress, but to be present at the piano dress that the B cast had. So he was like, I'm not singing. And then they were like, oh, well, it's going to be very weird to have hundreds of high schoolers who probably aren't all that keen on opera have to sit there and watch a guy move his mouth. So I had been learning it. I'd been learning Radames, and so I just sang it. It was basically glorified sight reading from the side of the stage. Yep. Went very well. Bootlegged it. Even though it was just with piano, I sent it to several of the agents and I was like, look, this is me stepping in at very short notice of Radames. Mm-hmm. And one of the agents was like, all right, let's talk about getting you on the roster right now. Yeah. So I was with that guy for about 2 years and then changed gears and was with another agent for 4 years. And now I'm with Bill Pallant of Etude Arts.
Shout out to Bill.
Been with him since
he's a pretty hardworking guy.
2018. He's a wonderful man. Yeah, I was just off the phone with him last night. Wonderful man. My gosh, from between the years 2012 till 2022. So right at 10 years ago. Yeah, only in the last 3 or 4 years did things get really good. 2012 was a very rough year. 2013, not much better. 14, a tiny bit better. I started getting professional things like Pagliacci at Opera Columbus and Florestan. I sang with Madison Opera in Wisconsin.
Yeah, nice company.
That would be 14. That was a decent year. I'd also done Dead Man Walking with Madison Opera in the spring. 15 was good. It was my first year getting my toe in the door at an A house. Washington, D.C., I covered Eric.
Great.
I covered.
Hard freaking role.
Right. It's tough. It's ridiculously tough. Thanklessly tough. Pointlessly tough.
Hard role.
Did that.
Thankless. Yeah.
And that got me, a toe in the door there, like I said. That was 2015. Also sang another professional Pagliacci also in Columbus. Again, actually, there was one in the fall of 14 and then in the spring of 15. And then now we're up to the point where I started working with John West. And late 15, I think I'd spent a lot of 15 over in Deutschland. Actually did a couple of audition trips that actually weren't that great that we could have another entire podcast about. And then 16 was good. 16 was very good. I did Pagliacci at Virginia Opera, the one I mentioned that was double billed with Seven Deadly Sins. I went straight from there to do sing Eric in Austin Opera. Mm-hmm. What did I do in the spring of 16? I'm trying to remember. Oh, I went another A house toe in the door. I covered Siegfried on last minute notice with a run of Siegfried at Toronto.
Great.
Canadian Opera Company.
COC, yeah, great.
January. Mm-hmm. Not a very fun time to be in Toronto, but we made the best of it. And I used sort of the strength of those experiences, having covered Wagner, Eric, in D.C. and having on the last second covered Ziggy in Toronto.
Yeah.
We really started ringing up. The agent I had at the time started really ringing up houses that were having ring cycles that were already cast. That were set to occur in the next 2 or 3 years. Everywhere in America that there was a ring cycle happening. Of course, it was too late to get cast as Siegfried, but I was like, I'm still at the point where I'd be very thrilled just to be the second, the backup quarterback.
Yeah.
So, and therefore I was like at all the places I mentioned: Chicago, San Francisco, Toronto. I covered Parsifal at the Met, and anyway, so that thus began the cover career, and then now back to where we started and talking about how 20 was going to be a big jumping off year. Didn't end up being, but that was okay because here I am in Berlin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to be patient sometimes, especially with, of course, the Wagnerian voices take the longest to mature, and it's really hard to be patient, especially when you've got the voice, you got the musical talent, and
everyone's scared. Yeah. Everyone's standing in the room waiting for another guy to make the first move. And so thank God for Christoph here, Christoph Zeufele, the opera director at Deutsche Oper. Mm-hmm. Heard me in audition in 2015 and then again in 2018. I came and auditioned then, and ever since that audition in 2018, he has made a point to make offers to me. The Siegfried was not the first offer. He had made others that I was not able to accept because of scheduling elsewhere. But when Simon O'Neill was not able to make it over from New Zealand because of COVID and travel and quarantines and the rest and the lack of a guarantee of performances in the spring of 21, that's when my phone rang. Yeah. Christoph didn't go to the next well-known Siegfried because actually a lot would have been available. Many were available. He went to me at 39 years old. He's one of the one who not only heard the talent, claimed to love the talent, but put his money where his mouth was and brought me over to sing the first new production since the 1980s. I will owe him till my dying day.
That's great.
God bless Christoph.
That's great. I want to talk to you about singing Wagner. Quickly, we'll try to get through this. I think we just got a few minutes. And what is because obviously some people can have a voice, but maybe not the capacity to learn, a 5 or 6 hour opera, and the style is all through composed, there's no verses.
Right.
Everything is, the action just keeps on moving.
Yeah.
How do you approach that as opposed to some other bel canto role that you might sing?
I think actually I get stumped on the strophic stuff because the difference in the music helps me with the memory.
I know what you mean.
When you have the same set of text to go with the same identical music, that's where it gets a little. That's where my eyes start to cross a little bit. Nah, man, it just takes time. It's a matter of just sitting there and plunking out the notes. It's a matter of translating it. And so that's going to help your memory. And, of course, it's antiquated German. It's not really even going to help you in your Goethe Institute class, for instance.
Right.
I was just corrected today. I used the word nimmer. And he was like, no, das ist Wagner. Das ist Wagner Wort. Wir benutzen nie. Nur nie.
Yeah.
We only use it. We don't say nimmer anymore. That's poetische.
Yeah.
It's only nie. And of course, but Wagner also used nie. I mean, he just had different words.
Right. Exactly.
Anyway, just funny little things like that. But yeah, I guess it's just a matter of getting it memorized. It's tough because Wagner is not good with the voice. It's not melodic with the voice. It's all the fun stuff's in the orchestra.
Yeah.
You never get a line. Well, late Wagner, you don't get lines. In the early Wagner, you do. Lohengrin and Tannhäuser and even some of the characters. Even lots of Flying Dutchman is very Italian. In terms of vocal melodies, yeah.
Interesting.
Ich frage der Priester Engel Gottes. That the Dutchman gets to sing the beautiful lines, but not in late Wagner, buddy.
Yeah. Lohengrin for sure.
Yeah.
Some beautiful music.
Middle Wagner.
Yeah.
But I love it. I love the late stuff, but it's just tricky as hell to learn. Very angular stuff, but you just sit there and you do it. and you memorize it. You associate it
just
with your
like
own
section
language.
at a time.
It's
Yeah,
sections at a time. It's just
Yeah.
you just repeat. You just repetition. It's just repetition. There's no shortcuts.
Yeah,
Not a single one.
that's great.
Leider.
That's great.
Es gibt
I bet
keinen
the
shortcut.
I bet the piano helps a lot because at least you can
I can
sort
sit there.
of you can play for yourself,
I can sit
which
there
helps a lot.
I can sit there and play the piano. Yeah.
Yeah, that helps a lot,
does.
and also as far as like chord progression,
Yeah.
you're probably analyzing that.
Figure out where the tonalities are shifting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and Wagner's nothing compared to something like Mahler and Strauss. I mean, that stuff.
right.
That stuff's nuts.
Yeah,
That stuff's shifting tonality. You can have 3 different keys in one measure, and the
That's
melody's
challenging.
just still jumping around just as much as Wagner would. Although Strauss does or at least sopranos. He lets sopranos have beautiful soaring melodies.
yes, he does.
Sometimes
That's
tenor,
true.
but he's so tough. It's so hard. So the Bacchus and Apollo and
Yeah.
oh my goodness, Menelaus and Die Ägyptische Helena. My wife and I both sang that at Boston Lyric.
Oh, wow.
I mean, not Boston Lyric, Odyssey Opera, the
Oh,
concert
yeah.
with Gil
Mhm.
Rose.
Yeah, great.
That's the last time I saw Sharon. Actually, Sharon
Okay.
came by to rehearsal and say
Okay.
hello.
Great.
That was in 2019, shortly before Sarah and I got married.
Okay.
Anyway, so fun times, fun music to sing, difficult to learn, but when Wagner, I find once you learn it, it sticks. You're not having to relearn it. I find
that's
one
nice.
must relearn Strauss and Mahler.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Beethoven also sticks.
So what do you got coming up here in Berlin?
Okay, I leave Berlin in about 3 weeks to go back to the States, actually.
Mm-hmm.
South Carolina, with the Bob Jones Opera Association to do my first Samson staged.
Mm-hmm.
That will be in March 8th, 10th, and 12th. Then Sarah and I both sing we're both soloists for the Missa Solemnis back up in Madison Symphony in Wisconsin with John DeMaine, Missa Solemnis Beethoven.
Great.
And then I go sing Act 3 of Siegfried in concert in Bilbao, so over in Spain.
Great.
And then back to the States to do, of all things, Act 3 of Aida. Interesting programming. The first half is, I think, like Act 3 of Rigoletto, and then the second part of the concert is with the Atlanta Symphony.
Okay.
In mid-May. And then I go over to the Erl Festival, the Tiroler Festspiele in Austria, Erl, Austria, for my first Walküre. I've actually never performed Siegmund start to finish. I performed Act 1 once in concert.
Okay.
And I covered it in San Francisco for the Ring Cycle, Siegmund.
That'll be staged?
Even though I've done it, it will be. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, they're putting together a whole cycle. I'm not sure if it will ever run as a cycle, but last year they began with Rheingold, and this year is Walküre. And I believe another tenor will be doing the Siegfrieds there in the coming summers, but it's just one at a time right now.
Okay.
And then I guess the fall is unfortunately still not announced. But
okay, no, that's
fun
good,
things to look forward to.
Absolutely.
I will say, generally speaking, I mentioned there's a Tristan coming up. There's also a Meistersinger coming up. There's also
fantastic.
a Frau ohne Schatten coming up.
Oh, great.
There's also my first Parsifal. There's also some other things.
Great.
So things are wonderful.
So people want to find you on the internet. They can find you.
Right.
You got a website?
ClayHilleyTenor.com.
Great. You're on Facebook or something.
Yeah, I'm off it. Yeah, you can find me. Just Clay Hilley. I don't even have a Facebook professional page, but I'll probably accept your friendship.
Should do an Instagram or something.
I have one of those. It's Clay Hilley on Instagram. You can look me up there. I'm there.
All right.
But I never really add things. I basically share things that I'm also tagged in. I'm not the world's best on that.
All right. So go to this guy's website.
Clay
Check
Hilley,
out
ClayHilley tenor.
It'll all be in the show notes.
That's right.
And check out his schedule. You got to hear this guy live. I heard him in Götterdämmerung at Deutsche Oper, and he just blows the doors off the place.
It was so much fun.
Incredible voice. So, an incredible guy.
Thanks, Eric.
New Berliner.
Woohoo!
Ich bin ein Berliner.
Donut man here at your service.
Yeah, exactly. All right, buddy. Take care.
Woohoo!
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.